following is intended for mature audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Round and round the wheel goes, a blessing for the one that chose. I grant your child a loveliness dear, a beauty unblemished, a visage clear, and to the baby but one thing more, a glimpse of what fate has in store. Trials and pains lead to just one thing. Hers shall be the love of a true great king. Chapter 1. Adalind. The castle at High Citadel is prettier than most. The gleaming silver structure stands atop a marble cliff, resplendent in its glory. Holy water from the Andalupe River runs around it, ending in a cascading, beautiful waterfall. Elvish artisans built it in the 5th century, a gift for the then king in return for services rendered. The current king, my husband, told the story often, all while stroking the smooth stone walls. It was also my prison. With the war, the king's standing orders had been that I never leave its walls. Never mind that he had been the one to start the conflict with the orcs to begin with. It was not that I had much freedom before, but I'd at least been able to ride through the royal woods or walk through my herb garden. Now even those small pleasures are denied me. Sitting in my solar, I look out through the lead-paned window. The sky is as gloomy as my thoughts, gray with heavy clouds. Our crops might be getting much-needed rain even without the country's mages' interference, which is good. Most of them were dragged to the front with the king's army, no longer at home where they would be of the most use. Who knows how many will survive the conflict, and my own talents have been spread too thin lately. The window is open, just a crack. When the wind blows from the south, I imagine that I can smell the burning scent of warfare upon the breeze. A fanciful notion. The battle is not close enough for such things. It is only my fear that plays tricks on my mind. Still, though the war is not close, it is not far either. And it's getting closer. A mere 2 days' ride. I shake my head, clearing my mind of such things, and focus back on the practical problems of the present. Sitting at my cramped writing desk, I make another red-inked mark in my ledger. Supplies in the western region are growing worryingly low. Most of the southern refugees fled that direction when the horde crossed our borders. If fighting lasts until the next season, there won't be enough food for my people through the winter. Thousands will die. Another tragedy caused by my husband's war. Gods damn him. I sigh, the muscles in my neck tense. I send a silent apology to Thesia, goddess of plenty, for the small use of blasphemy. The rest of the Adrikian pantheon I could do without, but the mother goddess is not one that you lightly offend. Still, the numbers in front of my eyes blur, and I am unsure whether it is from exhaustion or tears. Perhaps I have already offended her in some past life. There will not be much of her plenty left if they cut us off from the continent much longer. A timid, familiar knock shakes me from my hopeless reverie. Enter, Ursa. My head lady-in-waiting enters, worry in her eyes, her usually bright face haggard. Apologies for interrupting, Queen Adalind, Ursa ventures. But we have received word from the front, and it is bad news. A chill runs up my spine. What is it? She bites her lip, briefly looking down before meeting my eyes, her own shining with unshed tears. It is as you predicted. Fort Addis is fallen, and the king captured. We do not expect the horde will let him live. Then, they will push north to the capital. And, Your Majesty, they destroyed the Blue Guard. There is no hint of survivors. My heart seizes in my chest. The reality that my foolish, cruel husband may soon meet the death goddess 𝐚𝐫 and cross into the nether is neither unwelcome nor unexpected. But the Blue Guard, dead. My brother, their leader, dead. Grief hits me, swift and sure. And Ursa, her intended was in the guard. I wanted to rise from the seat and cross toward her, taking her into my arms, but she would not welcome such a gesture. Ursa is a proper lady, through and through, and I would be breaching all kinds of etiquette. Still, I wish I did not have to care for such things now, not when we share such sorrow. I am sorry for your pain, I say. Sir Tyrek was a good man. Ursa slumps slightly, her shoulders shaking with just the smallest tremor. I know she will not weep in my presence. Beneath her quiet demeanor is a spine of steel that I have relied on since I became queen. She struggles for only a moment before stepping back. "And I yours," she replies. "Lord Marvick was the best kind of brother." She doesn't offer me condolences on my soon-to-be-dead husband. She knows better. Putting her consummate noble facade firmly back in place, she continues. "With this new development, Your Majesty, if we are to enact your plan, we must do so swiftly." My gaze slides toward the window, looking at the overcast sky. The commoner in me hesitates. My plan is a good one, but involves so much sacrifice by so many innocent women. But the queen in me scoffs at my own weakness. Some sacrifice for the lives and welfare of many is a paltry price, one I can and must pay. Send the falcons, have our agents at the ready, and have the Gold Guard ready my horses and a war tent. We must ride to meet the horde without delay. Ursa curtsies low. "It will be done, Your Majesty." She turns to leave, but hesitates. "Will you need your veil?" I walk to the window, staring south toward the impending doom of my country. A cold shiver travels along my spine, leaving bitterness and vulnerability in its wake. Pack it, but I do not think I will wear it there. I must use every weapon I possess if I am to save the kingdom. I think it will be best if they see my face.
Chapter 2 Rognar. The human king's head makes an underwhelming thump on the ground when it leaves his shoulders. A growl leaves my throat at the unsatisfying end of my enemy, the cause of so much needless death amongst my people. Yorian was pitiful right up to the end. The crushing of his guard swiftly crumbled his human arrogance. His begging and threats were undignified and distasteful. The promises for ransom and riches were ridiculous. Soon all he had would be mine. The promises of retribution from shadowy allies bordered on absurdity. If they had not come to his aid these past 6 months of war, I doubt they would care much now that he was dead. Such an unworthy foe. His blood sullies my blade. The thought spurs me to swipe the cloak from his headless body, cleaning my steel on the once luxurious fabric. So much for King Yorian of House Hauser, ruler of Adric and the 7 Citadels. Bastard. Swine. Coming from my left, my axe, Gunnar, stands at my side and spits on the corpse. A clean death at your hands was too good for him, my king. He does not expect a response. I do not speak often, even to my closest advisors. They have been with me so long, though, that they can read my will upon my face and the carriage of my body. My shield, Urim, steps to my right, voicing my thoughts aloud in his typical even delivery.
A king must kill a king, in respect for the position, if not the person.
Tiredness cloaks my shoulders like a heavy burden. How long has it been since I truly slept? This is all so pointless. Before, I cared only for the wealthy neighboring kingdom, insofar as they would trade with us. I had no designs on their land, the conquering ways of my forefathers holding little interest for me. The prosperity and peace is a much more enticing lure. But that does not mean ours is not a nation of bloodthirsty warriors always at the ready. Now, with the death and destruction caused to my people by the Adricians, retribution must be had. lest other kingdoms think to try their luck against my horde. 𝐻𝐾𝐞𝐧 turns, determination and perhaps a little excitement sparking in his eyes.
What next, my king? With this snake's head cut off, the enemy is surely defeated. The light has gone out of the prisoner's eyes. The warriors are anxious for feasting in the bride chase.
I snorted that. Trust my horde now that their bloodlust is sated, to be thinking with their bellies and cocks. A bride chase of humans will hold little challenge, though it is said their soft bodies provide tremendous satisfaction. I would not know. My tastes run more towards strength and steel rather than fragile beauty and a wet quim. My lack of response does nothing to stop the debate of my counselors. Urim answers,
Humans are like the tricky hydra, 𝐻𝐾𝐞𝐧. Strike one head down and another wretched thing will slither into its place. Yorian had no heir, true, but by Idrikian law his queen is now regent until the next of the bloodline is found. She could rally her troops and march against us,
my shield warns.
I say we chew the bloodroot and surge toward High Citadel. We should not give the Adrikians any room to regroup, my king.
That mouse, 𝐻𝐾𝐞𝐧 guffaws.
She has not left her precious fortress since this battle began. Taking the capital and putting her head on a spike will be easy, barely worth consideration. It is a fool that underestimates such a treacherous people,
Urim argues.
My spies tell me that Queen Adalind has been handling all logistics and supplies for her people in the king's absence. She is cunning and shrewd. The only reason she is behind the castle walls is that Yorian considered her his greatest treasure. Before the war even began, she was scarcely allowed to leave. She is very blessed.
𝐻𝐾𝐞𝐧 growls at the insult, but cuts off the sound at a sharp gesture from my hand as I say, Enough! What blessing does this human carry, Urim?
It is unknown. She rarely appears before the public and is always veiled. However, it is said that she can work magic like a mage. We cannot consider this battle over yet.
Weariness grips me again, but I push it down as I always have, the results of brutal orcish training. I want this over soon, so that I may return home and let my kingdom flourish in peace. If the death of the witch queen will bring that, I want it done. Soon. Turning to my advisors, I command, Round up the horde, my axe and shield, and chew the bloodroot. More carnal pleasures can wait until after our sure victory. The thundering of thousands of pounding feet roars through the Adrikian countryside like a terrible storm. My horde has chewed the bloodroot, banishing fatigue and increasing their aggression. Even atop my war-beast bane, I can feel the buzzing in my veins, pushing me to go faster, push harder. We will ride the wave of momentum and end this war before the sun next falls. We pass several human settlements under the moonlight. They are dark, windows boarded tight, most not letting even a hint of firelight through, though smoke billows from several chimneys. The fetid air stinks of fear. Women and children, the elderly and infirm, huddled behind paltry walls of thin wood. The brute within, most likely influenced by the bloodroot, pushes me to raze the villages to the ground, to bathe in the blood of retribution. But I am not mastered by the brute or the root. I know that these weak humans are as much at fault for the war of their king as my own murdered people. The innocent are always powerless in the face of tyrants. My mother's bleak face flashes briefly in my mind. I grit my teeth, banishing her from my thoughts. The tyrant that betrayed her has already paid his price. It is useless to dwell on that past. Since we meet no resistance, I channel my rage and aggression toward the Adrikian capital. My people will have their recompense, and the heavy tribute tax I intend to levy will be punishment enough for these people. The pale glow of dawn's first rays is just breaking over the horizon when 𝐸𝐚𝐫 stiffens on his own war beast beside me and sends me a signal of caution with his hands. As the orc with the sharpest senses in all my horde, a gift from his elvish mother, I have long learned to heed his warnings. At a sharp signal from me, the horde slows to a stop.
What is it, 𝐸𝐚𝐫? Why have we stopped?
𝐸𝐴𝐴𝐻 queries from my left.
Riders.
He answers, cocking his head to the side, his brow furrowed in concentration.
On war horses. They approach at a furious pace.
How many? I grind out of my ruined throat.
Only 5.
𝐸𝐴𝐴𝐻 scoffs, breaking his usual emotionless demeanor.
5 against our horde? Have the humans gone mad?
𝐸𝐚𝐫 barks a laugh back.
That I cannot say. I can only say what I hear.
With the thundering horde now silent, I hear the same thing in the distance, though not as clearly as 𝐸𝐚𝐫. A small contingent of horses headed this way. Are they knights or something else? I should just order their death, but the small size rouses my curiosity, tempering the violence in my veins. Have the javelin throwers at the ready, but do not throw until my signal. I rasped out the order, throat even drier than usual from the blood root. 𝐸𝐚𝐫 shouts the order in Uruk-hai just before the riders crest over the hill, heralded by a murmur of astonishment from the horde. My eyebrows raise of their own accord. At the head of the party is a knight in full armor, but it is what they carry that warrants my shock. A huge banner of yellow broadcloth with an ancient Uruk-hai rune in the dried brown of human blood. Parlance, an ancient custom of pausing a conflict for negotiation, and not well known out of Uruk. What are you playing at, Witch Queen? The knights stop in clear view and range of our javelin throwers. The action seems deliberate, a show of bravery and trust. The head knight with the banner tilts back the visor of their helm, revealing a female. I did not know humans allowed women as warriors. I think bemused. There were none at Fort Attis when it fell. The female knight begins speaking, a husky alto that rings out clearly in the early morning air.
Hail, King Rognar, ruler of Uruk, savior of the hinterlands, banisher of Wyrmen, keeper of the sacred texts. We, the Queen's Gold Guard, greet you.
The words are formal, in accordance with parlance, though they only spoke a fraction of my titles. The ones used seemed deliberate, as well. They are softer than most of my war titles, a reminder of past mercies. My lips almost quirk at the ploy. The Witch Queen is clever. I find myself amused in a way that has not happened very often in my life. The knight continues.
I am Dame Zira, captain of the Gold Guard, sworn sword of the Queen, guardian of the Seventh Citadel. It is my honor to bring you the rune of parlance, painted in the blood of our leader, Queen Adalind, in accordance with your traditions, and to escort you and your officers to the Queen's camp to discuss the terms of our surrender.
Her delivery is clear and neutral, though I think I detect a bitter twist of Dame Zira's lips on that last word, which further stokes my amusement. On my left, 𝐸𝐴𝐻 guides his mount closer.
There is no precedence for parlance with outsiders, my king. There is no need to honor what is most likely naught but human treachery.
His words carry, and the knight stiffens in offense on her mount.
I stake my life on the honor of my queen.
She counters, stern pride dripping from every word.
I will stay unarmed with the bulk of your horde to be killed in the event of any trickery or deceit, if that is what you wish. My queen's word is true.
Such devotion from a knight this brave does make me more intrigued about the human queen. The Adrician king did not seem to inspire such selfless loyalty. My eyes flicker to the banner scrawled with blood. To ask for parlance, the leader of the warring faction must write the rune themselves with their own life's blood, a symbol of their life on the line for their people. But humans are smaller and weaker than orcs. Doing such a thing would be painful and difficult, especially for a pampered human female. Perhaps the knight is lying. Such a thing would prove Orim's words. I glance at 𝐸𝐚𝐫, waiting for him to make his opinion known as always, but instead I find him staring at the human knight, as if he'd never seen a female before. His mouth slightly agape. I flick my eyes away, amused but exasperated. I see the appeal of such a strong woman, but now is not the time. If he thinks of taking that female as a war bride, he is a fool. She would probably die before submitting to one who conquered her country and queen, or kill him instead. Surreptitiously, I sniff the air. The stench of 1,000 sweaty orcs is strong, but above all that is the sweet scent of human blood on the breeze. Dark and rich like honey, but then I catch another note, something like mint and lightning stinging my nostrils. Very magic. Unmistakable. Intimidable. The fairy touched witch queen truly did it, I muse, and that action makes my decision for me. Curiosity will win out over blood. I want to see the human that knows and follows the old ways, and who has such sweet blood. I accept your parlance, human. My voice growls out, like falling rocks in a canyon, shocking everyone around me. Take me to your queen. Chapter 3. Rognar. The morning is still young when we arrive at the human queen's camp. The sky is a hazy white-gray, not yet blue, and the cool light reflects off the large white tent like a beacon. A yellow flag flutters lightly at the apex of the tent, signaling that this is a place of parlance, and the Adrikian and Orakesh banners stand proudly on either side of the tent's entrance in accordance with tradition. Again, my inquisitiveness grows. It is very rare that a non-orc would know, let alone follow and respect Orakesh traditions. My interest grows as the small contingent of advisors and generals I have brought, and I dismount from our war beasts. If rousing my curiosity is part of the Witch Queen's ploy, it is working. Though, I think as Dame 𝐸𝐴 leads us through the canvas flaps, if she thinks to soften me with a surface-level respect of orcs, she will soon find her folly. I am not easily swayed nor manipulated, and I know too well the other race's disdain for my own. Someone must pay for Yorian's incompetence, and with him dead, it will have to be his wife. It is the last thought I have before all else flees my head. Stepping into the interior, all would appear as any other leader's war tent, with a large table and maps in its center. An empty and intricately carved chair sits on the side closest to me, atop sturdy carpets. But it is the occupant of the chair on the far side of the table that seizes my wits and replaces all strategy and suspicion with one word. Mine. The human queen is beautiful. No, the word is too tame, too paltry to encapsulate the woman in front of me. Stunning, resplendent, divine. A modest iron diadem sits atop raven tresses that flow down her shoulders and body in perfect waves. The morning light is not yet strong enough to light the tent, and the candles that light the space reflect off the inky surface of hair in a way that is not entirely mortal. The shimmer glittering like facets of a gem, almost iridescent. Her visage seems radiant, smooth olive skin with high cheekbones and a sloping jawline that looks like it was crafted by a master artisan. Pillowy lips in a deep coral, the color of sacred ziki blossoms, rest beneath an aquiline nose. Her eyes are a light gray, a bewitching shade that almost seems lavender. Her body is perfect, covered in simple robes of high-quality linen that dip and flow with the curves and graceful lines of her form. The short sleeves of her garment their arms covered in impossibly soft-looking skin, only interrupted on the right side with an expertly wrapped bandage. Where she was cut to make the Parliament's banner, I think, irrationally angry at the thought of any pain coming to this creature. "Chase," whispers an instinct deep in my hindbrain. "Take," it growls more forcefully. I have never felt the mating instinct heat my blood, calling me to bind myself to my one and only. I have no doubts, however, that it is happening now, a feral, biting instinct to claim. After just looking at this female once. Fuck. Fairy blessed, Urim had called her. It is no mystery now what her blessing is. Beauty. Like in the old tales when fairies walked freely among mortals and played with their lives, setting up epic tales with an irresistible woman as the prize. It is one thing to hear it in stories, however, and entirely another to experience it. The magic augmented beauty is almost painful to behold, and I would still cut myself off at the knees to remain in her presence 1 minute longer. Madness. Mine. Irresistibility might be a problem. It is clear I am not the only one affected. I can already hear thrumming from a few in my retinue, too low for human ears to catch yet. But the beginning of sibilance, the orc's song of enticement, something my own broken voice is incapable of creating. I must act quickly, or a mating challenge will erupt in this tent before a word has even been spoken, and I kill every last one of my most loyal soldiers. A rough and warning growl rips from my throat, tearing into the perceived silence of the space. It silences the thrumming as my orcs regain control over themselves once more. The threatening sound does not affect the humans as one would expect. Her guard stands ready, but at ease, and the queen's gorgeous lips stretch into a welcoming but practiced smile, as if she expected such a reaction. The smile immediately makes me wary. Distantly, I think back to my discussion with Urim. The Adrician queen is known to wear a veil wherever she goes in public. The choice not to wear one is deliberate, a calculated move. Her beauty is a weapon, I realize, and she knows how to wield it. Realization of the queen's devious strategy does nothing to douse the growling, possessive feeling in my chest. However, if anything, my intrigue only grows, alongside the hardness of my cock under my war kilt. Seemingly oblivious to the tension that has grown in the scant minute since we entered, Dame Zira steps to the side of her queen, extending an arm.
I present to you Honorable Orikesh Delegation, Queen Adalind, Regent of Adric, leader of its armies, defender of its innocent, fairy favored.
Fairy favored. It is an interesting title, almost synonymous with fairy blessed. But the connotation is different. It positions the fairy that blessed her as not just a one-time benefactor, but a champion. The subtle difference makes it seem unwise to harm the queen in any way. Only a fool would anger an immortal, capricious being with unlimited magic. Clever witch. Excitement begins to pound through my veins, as rampant as when I stand at the cusp of a battle, axe at the ready. My natural orc aggression, augmented with the hints of bloodroot still in my system, makes me crave a good fight. And I am, I realize, about to have a good fight. Perhaps not with blade and shield, but with words and cunning. And my opponent is worthy. Queen Adalind allows a smile to grow on her face for a moment. I worry my orcs will begin thrumming again. The expression sharpens her beauty to something even more painful to behold, like a beatific smile on a statue of the mother goddess, or a jeweled dagger poised right over the heart. It is so lovely that it is almost easy to miss that it does not quite reach her luminous eyes, which are touched with a deep sorrow.
Welcome
she intones, her voice sliding through the space like warming oil over a wound, painful and soothing all at once.
Rognar, King of Orcs, Guardian of Auric, All Chief. Your acceptance of parlance brings great honor.
Orcs are auditory creatures. Seduction, binding, and intimidation is all tied into our voices. Our sibilance. It is a gift exclusively given to our kind by the Father God. But I would almost think this human had sibilance of her own. So ensnaring is the music of her voice, a witch queen indeed. 𝐼𝐚𝐫 is the first to gather his wits, schooling his face into its normal expressionless mask.
Our king accepted this invitation on the promise that Adric intends to surrender. Do you bring the blood chalice?
The thought of bleeding the human in front of me from her other delicate wrist, so that my generals and I may sip her blood from the cup of surrender, makes me wish to do violence. Would she even survive more blood loss? How different my feelings are from only hours ago, when I wished to remove her head from her neck with all haste. If 𝐼𝐚𝐫 is hoping for acknowledgement from Queen Adalind, he is disappointed. Her piercing gaze stays on me, acting as if I had been the one to speak.
Oh dear,
She says, her lips curling again into a smile, this one looking less calculated and more genuine. My sack tightens under my cock.
There appears to have been a slight misunderstanding. I am certain my knight told you we are to discuss the conditions of our surrender. Surrender is on offer after these negotiations, but only if those certain conditions are met.
There is a moment of silence as an air of disbelief settles over our party. This human, so close to the catastrophic loss of a war started by her own husband, seeks to dictate terms to us, the victors, to orcs. Her audacity would be astonishing if it were not flirting with stupidity.
conditions.
𝐼𝐚𝐫 throws his head back in laughter, his voice breaking the tense silence. I realize that I did not hear his throne with the others when we entered, and his disdain seems to indicate he is not as affected as the rest of us. Interesting. His harsh tones voice the incredulity I do not let show on my own stone face.
You think to impose conditions on orcs? How? You have lost. You have no power. Your armies are broken. We have beaten you with a mere fraction of our horde. If you continue to struggle, your country will survive another week at most. You have no leverage, foolish woman.
Dame 𝐼𝐴 growls in outrage, her hand flying to the hilt at her hip, no longer the calm knight from the road.
You go too far. I will cut your disrespectful tongue from your head, orc, and make you eat it.
𝐼𝐚𝐫 growls back, but it is almost an aroused sound. If she thinks that words of violence will quell an orc like 𝐼𝐚𝐫, she is very wrong. Yes, the female knight has her claws in him, and does not even know it. The ethereal queen's hand floats out, staying her knight's rage before the threat can bring a response from my retinue and kind. She doesn't acknowledge my axe, her gaze continuing to scorch mine, her expression as unreadable as my own. With a mild tone, she says,
I thought the king of such a mighty nation would understand that there are more kinds of power than force of arms. Am I to be disappointed?
One perfect eyebrow quirks, her beautiful expression challenging.
What?
Barks out 𝐼𝐚𝐫, his sudden rage at the slight mirror of the human warriors from before. His hand twitches toward his weapon, but a glance from the side of my eye sees his hand back to his side.
Cease with the riddles, human queen.
𝐼𝐚 says mildly, my shield always the more level-headed of my advisors.
Have you brought us here under pretense, then? No true surrender is dictated by the loser. It is up to the victors. Was this surrender of yours not but a human lie?
Queen Adalind reaches out an impossibly delicate hand, grasping a crystalline goblet filled with a lavender liquid, the same color as her eyes, from the table. She takes a small sip, peering at me from the top of the glass. The blood in my veins quickens, the mating instinct coming forward more forcefully than before. Chase. Take. She swallows her sip, seemingly unaware of the effect her intent gaze is having on me. Adalind has yet to acknowledge anyone else in the tent. Her full lips tilt up in a small, secret smile.
Yet, I already know your terms, King Rognar.
The response surprises me enough that my stone facade cracks for an instant, my eyebrows rising just a fraction. In response, her smile widens, her painful beauty becoming almost blinding. A true smile, I muse, one of pleasure or joy, with no edges. I would kill to see it. I would die to see it.
The late king attacked your people unprovoked, destroying lives, towns, livestock.
She continues, unaware of my dangerous thoughts.
The Orakesh tradition states that the recompense must be taken from the guilty party in 10 times the value lost. Every injured party and bereaved family must receive compensation in either goods or money to that end. Yes?
The queen tilts her head slightly, waiting for me or my advisors to refute her statement. With none forthcoming, she continues.
But that is not all, is it? In celebration of your victory, your horde must be treated to a week of feasting, and those that distinguished themselves in combat will be granted a bride chase.
An intake of breath surrounds me and my retinue. How does she know this? Where is she getting her information?
What do you know of the bride chase?
Gunnar demands, once again the voice of the group.
How do you know the sacred traditions? There is no need for unquiet,
Queen Adalind says to me, ignoring the question.
I can give you everything you want, in exchange for reasonable conditions.
And if we reject these conditions? Asks Ulrim, his tone soft and dangerous. Finally, her eyes flick away from mine, settling on my shield. I feel the loss, inexplicably wishing to strike my friend and advisor. Ridiculous. Witchcraft. Fairy mischief. She responds to him, her tone an exact mirror of his own.
Then, I can take it all away.
The effect of her words is like a spark to tinder. My orcs begin a cacophony of uproar, weapons being drawn and insults shouted. The human guards draw their weapons, their stances defensive around their queen. Yet the human monarch does not move, does not show alarm. In fact, her calm tells me that she expected this outcome, and she is merely waiting for the next piece to move on the board. Infuriating human. Fascinating woman. I swing my fist, slamming it into the heavy table before me. The clamor immediately stills. A tension in the air as the chaos is forcefully contained. Enough! I grind out in my ruined voice. Stop with the human double speech. Speak plainly or this talk is done. Silence greets my words. The quiet enough that the sound of the gentle breeze outside can be heard clearly. My warriors know that I do not speak often, and never in front of outsiders. Now it is the second time today I have done so. The humans do not know that this is unprecedented. Instead, Queen Adalind's gaze slides back to me, where it belongs. Her violet eyes flick to my fist on the table, now surrounded by splintering wood. For a moment I think that I see something in her unreadable depths, something that sits in my gut like spoiled meat. Fear. My mother's eyes staring at my monster father. Then it's gone. So quickly I'm not sure I didn't imagine it. Still, I relax my hand, allowing the muscles to soften. Her eyes meet mine, a question I can't make out on her features before her lovely, calm smile slides back into place.
All right,
she says pleasantly, as if nothing had just happened, her voice somehow both warm and crystalline.
Plain speaking, then. Adric's wealth comes primarily from 2 sources, our merchant fleets and ports in the west, and the large precious metal mines in the north and south. This, along with the royal treasury, is where your recompense would come from, the source of any future tributes and taxes as a territory of your kingdom.
Queen Adalind smiles at me again, this time with a hard glint in her eye, making the expression dangerous. Seductive.
I have placed explosive runes in the treasury and on every ship in our fleet. Oh, and at every major port as well. In addition, miles of tunnels in our most productive mines have been lined with runes. Enough to collapse them, undoing decades of work and rendering them completely worthless.
Growls of outrage erupt around me, and this time I do nothing to stop them. My mind is reeling. She is insane. Still, she continues.
The runes were made personally by me and have 3 triggers, one of which is my death. There is no way you could find and remove them before I financially cripple Adric irreversibly. Finally, the young, childbearing women of my kingdom have been apprised of what awaits them if our talks fail. They are each prepared to deprive your horde of their prize through the most final way possible, at my signal.
Her smile stretches wide and genuine, dazzling me so thoroughly I forget for a moment how to breathe. It is not kind, or even pleasant, but it reaches her eyes this time, sincere in its emotion. Triumph. The Queen turns the full force of that smile on Gunnog, acknowledging him for the first time.
How is that for leverage?